Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. BJonGameDay back again for another week, as always. Not joined by Joshua King this week, but am joined by, as always, by our illustrious producer, Bogan. Mate, how are you?
Oh, yeah. I'd be a little bit happier if the other fucking hosts would show up.
Yeah, look,
I don't. I don't. I
not
don't
sure what's
know.
happening with Mr.
I
King
don't know
tonight.
what's going. Next week might be Bogan on game day, and I'm the last person you want Supercoach tips off.
Look, I'll tell you what, Bogs. I'll do the show with a newborn
You'll do it.
in hand
You'll
if I
do it
need to,
from the
mate.
maternity ward at the Canberra Hospital,
Uh,
and you'll be
Yeah, well,
asking
I'll,
the new arrivals what they think.
yeah. Look. To be honest, a newborn baby probably can't do any worse than I have anyway. So, no, look, no King tonight. He might have fallen asleep on the lounge, or he'd be tending to something else, maybe walking the greyhounds or something. But yeah, hopefully he's all good and he's starting up, getting his team ready for round 17. Bugs, just quickly, how'd you go last week? Anything
No,
worth mentioning?
terrible.
Beautiful, no worries. Well, I managed a 1175, which was probably about par, to be fair. I moved up just under 300 spots, so still hovering just around that 2500 ranking. I think I'm sitting about 2400 overall. Just, yeah, it's just seemed to be where I've sat for the last, it feels like 2 months. Can't really improve or go too much worse. But that said, round 17 ahead, Bogues. I'm not looking amazing for coverage this week in terms of the number of players I'll have. So I'm expecting a bit of a drop this week, which means that only slight improvement in the ranking this week might hurt a little bit because I was hoping maybe I could improve a little bit more to save myself when I'm expecting a bit of a drop this week. So look, we'll see what happens. Um, I don't think there's a heap of people with a heap of big numbers. It seems to be a lot of people I'm talking to, that 12, 13 sort of number seems to be what a lot of people are having. If you've got any more than that, you're doing pretty well. But again, it's always quality over quantity in these buy
Oh,
rounds.
geez,
Um,
only got 6 viewers, and there's someone without a wrench. Hold on, I'll fix.
Good segue, Bogans. Good evening to everyone in the chat. The six of you, the half dozen that have managed to join in that are still floating around at this
That are
point of the
still
season.
playing Supercoach. Those who haven't deleted the app and thrown their fucking phone into a lake.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cooper, Matty, Shieldsy, Danny. Good evening. How are we all? Good to have you, Danny. Is it
No,
unwrenched?
he's
Oh,
nearly
chuck it.
wrenched now. If he typed in the chat, he'll have a wrench.
Congrats, Danny, on the wrench. Beautiful. Now, look, a bit of a shorter one this week, obviously, with the bye round this week. We only have the 4 fixtures for the NRL. So we'll have a look at those and then we'll see what happens. Whether you got any questions in the chat, happy to have a look. But yeah, might bit of a quicker one this week, folks.
I'd be happy with that. Yeah.
Sounds good. And we will kick it off on the Friday night on a Thursday
Still
night,
having
rather.
Thursday
Sorry,
game even
with
with
the
4 games. Bullshit, but yeah.
Sharkies taking on the Storm at PointsBet. Look, a little bit of a weakened Storm side in this one, obviously, with all the Origin players missing from these games. But a few interesting things coming out during the week in regards to the Origin side. So Nico Hines, for one, hasn't found himself in that Blues 17 at all, and he's not even 18th man, so he'll be released pending any injuries or anything like that in camp for the next week or couple of days. He'll be there for 17, which was a bit of a surprise. I think a lot of people thought he might not be there. I mean, there was always that chance he was or he wasn't, but can confirm we'll have him for 17, so that's great for owners. I think a lot of people, anyone that's sort of half serious about it this season, should already have Nico Hines, so it shouldn't really make too much of a difference. And another one that we won't actually see, which probably a few people assume we would, especially even based on him being picked in Origin 2, and that's Talakai. So he's managed to retain his spot in that Blues 17 for now, and as a result, won't be playing for the Sharks on Thursday night. So, for me, because I think at one point I thought, well, I won't have Hines, but I will have Talakai, but it's actually the obverse. So it didn't really make a difference to the numbers that I thought I'd have for 17, but yeah, I think that was a little bit interesting. I think it'd be remiss of me not to mention the return of Ryan Pappenhausen last week for the Storm. Look, it was the Storm actually had got it given to them again by Manly. The end scoreline doesn't reflect how that game actually played out. And up until about, I think, 5 minutes to go, bringing in Ryan Pappenhausen looked like a terrible decision to have made. But I think he scored 100 points in the last 5 minutes. It was Bogan. There was some stats. I think he set up a couple, scored a couple. I don't know exactly what it was, but he essentially scored around 100 points in the last 5 minutes of the game. And all those people that looked like they'd made a terrible decision in bringing, Pappy in at 900,000 plus with 140 break even, looked like geniuses. And then fast forward, to this round, he's actually gone up some money.
Oh,
So huge coup for anyone that did bring him in. And look, I said it in a couple of chaps, Bogues. This is the beauty of Supercoach. The numbers suggested you shouldn't have brought Paps in. He was over 900,000, 140 break even, hadn't played since round 9, had COVID in that time. It was, everything said not to bring him in. Logical sort of move was to not bring him in. But the beauty of Supercoach is it's not just about the numbers. You can go on your gut, or if you need points, it's all about scoring points. And arguably one of the best players in Supercoach to do that is Pappy. And there were some people that brought him in. I know Kando brought him in, one in particular, and he even agreed it was a bad trade. But kudos to anyone that brought him in. As I said, the numbers might suggest it wasn't a good trade, but every now and then you just got to do something that goes against the grain, or might be able to make a move and make some points, be a bit of a pod. And it was definitely that play just based on the numbers. So it paid off. Well done to anyone that brought him in. And now, as I said, he's gone up this week. So if you didn't go on him last week, assuming you'd lose a bit of coin, we've all got a bit of egg on our face, and there's a lot of us that have that now. And he's basically must have this week. I know he has like another 100 break even, and he's like 940k or whatever it is, but he's just plain and simply a keeper for the run home. And I think you got to get him in your side if it's just a matter of, destroying a few guys this week, going complete nuffs just to a couple of dudes that'll play this week and won't play again.
That's exactly what I'll be doing with my trades this week.
Do what you got to do to get him in, because once he's in, and we saw last week what he can do, and that's why you have him. So we didn't hope, I guess, as someone that didn't trade him in, they did do it last week, but that just shows exactly what he's about. So huge return from Paps. I won't say too much more about that because I was a salty non-owner for a bit of that as well. Look, a couple of missions, as I said, from that Storm side. No Cameron Munster, no Harry Grant in particular. Which sees Nick Meaney slide into the 6. So Grant Anderson's got a little bit of a reprieve. There's a bit of talk that possibly Nikorima, Jaden Nikorima, could potentially swing into the side and push Meaney back onto the wing, but I don't really see it happening after what we saw last week from the Storm. That pizzling they pretty much copped, even though, as I said, the end scoreline didn't look too bad. So your Jerome Hughes, Brandon Smith's a possible buy this week as well, Bogues. Haven't had a look at the numbers for a few of these guys, and I know it's a bit difficult just as a 1 week option for some of these guys, and then he possibly goes back to the bench or whatever else. But there's a couple options in that Melbourne side for sure. But I think Pap's got to be your number one priority. Jerome Hughes is probably a good little pod. The Cronulla side of the park, I think they've just been Supercoach friendly most of the season. It's a little bit of a harder draw for them for the next couple of weeks, Bogues, but guys like Mulatano, Sean Katoa's been scoring tries, Will Kennedy, obviously Nico. It is a tougher matchup for them against the Storm. That said, they are missing a few players, but Craig Bellamy coach side, you'd expect to bounce back after what happened last week. But we'll wait and see. It is a better matchup for the Sharks to take on the Storm this week, though. That's for sure. I guess the interesting thing to note on this one as well, Bogues, is if you do have a Pappy or you do have a Hines, ideally in a buy round, you'd love to be able to VC one, have a free look, and then captain the other, ideally. But given they'll be up against each other, you might have a bit of a decision to make. So whether you want to chuck it on, I think a lot of people will be looking at Hines just for the simple fact that he has the ability to hit that big ceiling a bit more easily. But a pod play might be to chuck it on a Hines, but definitely don't just chuck the C on one of them. You're likely to not have a full team playing this week. I'd be amazed if anyone does have 17 this week. So make sure you just use your VC to get a free look, and you'll have someone that be able to put in your starting side to set as the captain if they do go well. And if they don't go well, then you can have a go with someone else. So obviously, I guess the other thing to mention last weekend, horrid conditions, Bogues, around Sydney in particular. I'm not entirely sure what the weather's going to be doing or what the fields and all that will be like, but this one here is in Sydney as well. I know there've been some areas around Sydney declared as disaster zones and that sort of thing. So good luck to everyone in those areas in particular. I hope everyone's safe and sound. But footy wise, just keep an eye on the weather. It might not be the sort of game we hope, but I haven't even looked at the weather bugs. I'd have to bring up the trusty old iPhone weather app. But yeah, apart from that, I don't know. There's nothing really jumping out at me as a someone to pick up from these two sides. There's no one too bottom dollar that might be an easy bring in this week. I think a lot of guys in these sides are, a lot of people should have already jumped on Anderson. They probably wouldn't jump on him now, given what we saw from him last week. Got found out a little bit, and his score wasn't great. I'd be probably steering clear apart from any of the major guns. Like I said, whether you jump on any of these, Militano's been scoring well. Qatar I've had my eyes on for a month, but haven't brought him in. And whilst they have a couple of harder games now, it does get a little bit better for the Sharks. So some interesting prospects there. Moving on to the Friday night, Bogues. My boys taking on your boys.
Yeah, I would say this. It could be an interesting one.
What's happening in Sydney? So a bit of rain around in Sydney, 40% chance apparently on Saturday. Again, this is a Thursday game, 50% chance, but a lot of rain today and tomorrow and into Thursday as well, just by the way. So keep an eye on that. Newcastle taking on the Rabbitohs, Bogues. Some interesting changes to these sides. For the Knights, begins with Brayley and Bradman Best back into the side. Gagai and Kalen Ponga miss out in Queensland camp, and Texie Hoy goes to fullback. And Bradman Best effectively just fills in for Gagai, I guess, but Twala will lose that spot once Gagai returns. Rabbitohs, some big news in particular for Campbell Graham, has touched on, I think it was a fractured cheekbone or something like that, just been confirmed today, and he's looking at surgery, and I think it was 4 to 6 weeks, or maybe 6 to 8 weeks, don't quote me, but it's looking like he's at least out for a month with that facial surgery that he needs to get to fix up the cheek. So yeah, that hurts a few people that had sort of picked up Campbell Graham for this week. Even, on the weekend, he copped that collision. It wasn't too long into the game and he went off, but he ended up coming back on, which was nice for owners. So he still was able to get some points out there. I was made a joke during the week. If I owned him, he definitely wouldn't have come back on. But yeah, so he's obviously a trade now. He won't play this week, and I think he's worth a bit of coin still. So I don't think it's worth holding him. Where is he? Graham. Yeah, he's still over 600k with a pretty decent break even. So I think you can jump off him and find something else for the next month, especially with that money. I guess it's nice that he has sort of not plummeted a heap of cash. He lost about 30k, but it could have been much worse than what it was. He still ended up scoring 52 in that game. So, no Cam Murray. The return on Latrell Mitchell is obviously a pretty interesting one, Bogan. He had a pretty successful return. You have to say last week against the Eels, Rabbitohs getting up and over the Eels, pretty dominant performance. And he scored well. I think it was a 91 from Latrell, 92. Where is he? Should do some research before the show starts, Bogues. What do you reckon? A 99 he updated to in the end. Well, there you go. So a nice score for Latrell, a good return. Look, there's a lot of people looking at him as a bit of an option this week. Obviously declared himself unpicked for New South Wales after that game. So wants to focus on South Sydney. All the talk about him coming back, fitter than ever, lost 10 kilos, all that sort of stuff. So, good on him. But yeah, Supercoach wise, he's very relevant. 610,000. It's a bit hard. He doesn't have a big sample this season, but obviously the return game is good. I, for one, am a big Latrell Mitchell fan, but I, for one, know that you've got to be careful with him as well. He has a big game, and then the next game looks like he's not even interested. But I think a bit of a different set of circumstances around Latrell now. He's missed a fair chunk of the season. He spent a fair bit of time in rehab and a couple of weeks over in the States. So they invested a bit of money in him to go over there and get him right. And he's missed the last couple of years for South's finals series because he's done something silly with a suspension or something like that. So I think, if the Souths are going to make a run for the finals, which they sort of need to switch on if they're going to give themselves a chance at making the 8, they're not guaranteed at this point. There's a lot of teams sort of vying for those bottom 4 spots in particular, maybe bottom 5 even. They need to start winning games, and this is one they need to win. It's a very important game for them this week. So I think he'll be switched on. Don't think it's a bad move. That with the added bonus as well that he's obviously kicking the goals now that Adam Reynolds has moved on. So if they're scoring 4 or 5 tries a game or more, and he's kicking 4 or 5 goals, there's an extra 15 to 20, 16 to 20 points that you'll find, and that turns a 60 to an 80 every week, and all of a sudden he's a much more viable prospect. So yeah, he's very Supercoach friendly, great price, break even's not too bad. It's just in the past he has had that tendency to be pretty lazy. He doesn't have the big base on him or anything like that. But it might take a bit of pressure off Cody Walker and open up a few of the other guys outside of him, like Alex Johnson and guys like that. So I think he's a viable pickup this week. The other one that was a late inclusion last week was Sire Tass, Bogues. There was a bit of mail going around that Tass would be included late. I couldn't go on it, but he did. He ended up scoring well, 71 points in the end. He had a negative 26 break even, so he made a good pretty much 80 or 70,000 as a result of that. A good performance. I don't know if you've missed the boat. 314k, he looked really good, and he also played out on the left. So you've now got Tass definitely going to be probably playing on that left side now for the next at least 4 weeks while Campbell Graham's out, and even when Campbell Graham was on, he shifted to the left. So he's on that dominant side for the Rabbitohs, and with Latrell back, hopefully, like I said, it unlocks Cody Walker a little bit more, or takes the pressure off him a little bit. Obviously, Alex Johnson's on that side, but I think that Asaya passed the eye test regardless of any of that on his own. 39 in base, some attacking stats. He looks really good. So anyone that held him or picked him up last week or whatever, great stuff. Have you missed the boat? I don't know. I don't think he's a must-have, but he could be a decent option. The Rabbitohs draw isn't too bad for the next couple of weeks. It does get a little bit harder after that with Melbourne and then the Sharks, and then their run home is pretty ordinary, to be fair. Sort of that last 5 weeks they'll play Warriors, Eels, Panthers, Cowboys, Roosters. So whether or not it's worth bringing him on a trade, maybe you can make a bit of coin off him, hopefully. But just have a little bit of think about it, and really have a look at that run home and whether or not he's worth a trade to bring in this week. Provided you're making a bit of coin off him, it's probably not too bad, to be fair. What else you got in there, Bugs? I got Cody Walker. I can't wait to trade him out next week. I hope he can just hit his break even this week of 100 or whatever it is, 104, 105, and doesn't hemorrhage any more cash. I cannot wait to get him out of my fucking side. You got guys like Jed Cartwright who are a possible, just people looking at, like I said, downgrading a Kula or a Kravaz. You got Jetty Cartwright, who might be just a single play this week. He's been named to start on the edge. 200k. He's got that duality between centre wing and second row, which is pretty helpful as well. So if you do have a Carrazza or a Cooler, you can go straight to him and bank, over 200k. Should only play this week. What he does this week, I don't know, but you're pretty much just hoping he'll play this week and then won't play again this season. There's another one from the Broncos that'll be the same.
Yeah,
people looking at
traded.
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard to sort of say on these guys because you just really don't know what the role is. Maybe if they pump out a 50, you'll take it. As I said, you're just trying to hope they don't get like a 20 or something like that. But regardless, I think you're just trying to make a bit of coin with them, and anything they score is a bit of a bonus. If it's a bit of an educated guess and it's someone starting on an edge or something like that, and there's a chance they might score a 50 or 50 plus, you'll take it all day. So you got Keenan, Colin Long on the tongue. He's also sort of bottomed out a little bit. He was sort of mid 600,000s only about 6 weeks ago. He's now down to 500k. And a 50 odd break even, so he's a bit cheaper and a viable option this week as well. And just quickly on the Newcastle side of the park, quick mention: Frizzell, Barnett, both priced around similar price, 480, that 480 or so price. Good options. They haven't set the world on fire. They do have tries in them. They got pretty steady base. You might get that 40, 50 out of them, but they do have that little try or something in them and a 70, 80 at times. The way Texway goal kicked last week, I'd like to think that Barney might be a chance of getting the goal kicking this week with KP out as well. And the Knights draw isn't too bad after the next couple of weeks. So I know, we're not the best team in the world, but in about 3 weeks' time, it really improves for us. We do play South Manly and the Roosters. over the next 3 weeks, which isn't too bad, but it is us. But then they play the Dogs, Tigers, Brisbane Raiders, Titans, Sharks to finish. So it's sort of hard. I've had a look at one of them, Bogues. They're both pretty much same price. Bit of a coin toss. I don't know. I'm a big fan of Barney, but I was thinking maybe Frizzell just because, I don't usually go Frizzell, so I go something different, but what do you do? Best is back as well, mid 450s. Dominic Young, I think I called it last week. You could maybe go him at 330, but it was a bit of an ugly buy. He ended up scoring a hat trick and turned up. Now has a -6 break even and went up nearly 70k last week. So wish I listened to myself, and shout out to Edric Lee, who scored 5 last week, 160 as well. I don't think you could pick him up. People are going to look at him and make some cash, Bogues. What's usually going to have a big, so 480 with a -60 VE about. He'll make a bit of coin, and he will play this week. But he's 500k. I think you could do better. He's got some low scores in him. Old Edric might have to forget about that big 170 outlier. Moving on, folks. We have the Tigers taking on the Eels on the Saturday at Leichhardt Oval. So another Sydney-based game. Just keep an eye on that weather. Look, I think I'm a person that doesn't have many Eels players in my Supercoach team, Bogan, and this game really scares me. Some really genuine options in this Parramatta side. I guess some big news from Ryan Madison owners. There was some murmurs that he might miss this week, but he has been named to start at lock, so that's a big win for owners. Maybe if you don't own him like myself and you're thinking about bringing him in, keep an eye on those team lists and maybe have a bit of a backup plan if he doesn't get named. Maybe you can trade him in, and if someone that you're trading out had the buy or whatever this week, you could just trade him back in or do something else depending on what your team looks like. But Maddo's someone I've sort of had a look at it. Sucks he didn't play last week because he's got 100 break even, but there's every chance he could hit that against the Tigers if he crosses for a meaty. You got Dylan Brown, Mitch Moses, very relevant. Sivo as well. I know the form of Sivo hasn't been awesome, but for a guy at 480k, he's got a proven track record of scoring tries. Can blow up deluxe. 480. It's a little bit of a punt, but I think at this point of the year, you need something like that, someone that can blow up that maybe not a lot of people have. And this buy round is the round that could potentially pay massive dividends for you. Dylan Brown is another guy I'm looking at that I don't have that I think is like almost must have. I know his form in the last 3 or so weeks hasn't been as good, but I think the Eels' next couple of games are pretty good. Their run home's not too bad. It's a little bit indifferent. They've got a few tough fixtures coming up in the next 6 weeks, but nothing. Parramatta, Penrith would be the hardest. But I like Dylan Brown this week. He's bottomed out a little bit in price. Not as cheap as he was to start the season, but he's low 600s with a 60-odd BE, so that's definitely achievable. Mitch Moses, what's he doing? Mitchell Moses, 580 with an 80-odd break even. Again, he's been a bit hot and cold with his form, but a good couple games, maybe a good pod for this week. But again, the weather's going to probably play a bit of a factor in this game as well. Outside of that, Sean Lane's getting a lot of airtime as well. People looking at IPAP and talking about Maddo, but Sean Lane saw some stats from the Supercoach. One of the pages today that, he's just in crazy form. You look at his last month and he's arguably one of the best sort of forwards in the comp, up there with Joey Tapine, who everyone's been talking about. He's only low 600s as well with a low break even. So he's gone a bit in as a bit of a smoky, really low ownership as well. I think the thing that I read was from, it's the one Tim Williams. I can't even recall the name. I can't even give him a shout out because I can't. The Supercoach. Someone tell me what the name of that one is. I've totally forgotten. It'll come back to me and I'll shout him out, Bogues. Anyway, there was some stats. He's like less than 1% owned by the top 10,000 or something like that, Sean Lane. So some pretty crazy numbers. So definitely some options in that Para side. Have a look at them. Genuine keepers for the run home with Maddo, Pap, Dill Brown. Whether you're looking at Gutho, if you got a Teddy or something like that, there's plenty of options in that side. And a good draw for the next couple of weeks. The Tigers side of the park, it's hard to recommend anything. Adam Dewey's finding himself named in the centres, which is interesting. I still think he's probably priced out a little bit returning from injury. Playing at centre, it's a little bit hard. He's high 670s with a near 200 break even, so he won't be going near that. It'd be crazy to do that sort of thing this week. Nofaluma's 480 with a 72 break even. Couple of average scores in 2 of his last 3, so it's a little bit hard again. That Tigers side, they're not scoring heaps of tries. Generally, not really working out for Supercoach if teams aren't putting tries on and getting those decent attacking stats. Plenty of people were talking about Garner a few weeks as well, the dual centre wing, second rower, but again, even he hasn't been amazing. He scored a try a few weeks ago and scored a 71. The base has been mid 40 odd. It's nothing, definitely not a must-have, but again, a guy that's sort of priced under 500k with an achievable break even. It's just at this point of the year, you got to determine. I think a trade like him in for that price, you've got to think, well, you think he's sort of like a keeper sort of for the run home potentially, and I just don't see it with what's available at centre wing this season. Second row's a little bit drier this season, I must admit, but I don't see him as like a top 3 or top 4 back rower either personally. So look, now I've said that, he'll probably score a ton, but their draw, they play Penrith, Cowboys, Brisbane the next 3 weeks. I just don't think you want to go near any Tigers at this point in the season. Sorry to Tigers fans out there to rag on your team like that, but let's be honest.
Suffering Tigers fan.
The only other one as well that might be possibly worth a mention, regardless of whether they get hammered each week or not, is Big Joe Offengawi. Bit of a breakout season from him. Start of the season at under 400k, but he's averaging. What's he averaging this year? 62. Plays pretty decent minutes. A lot of it's just really heavy base, but he's been awesome this year. You couldn't fault him. Anyone that jumped on him to start the season for whatever reason, great pickup. Even if you got on him after like the first 6 weeks or 8 weeks, arguably his last sort of month or 2 of the comp's been his best, but he's been really solid. So he's now just under 600k, so it makes him a bit hard to pick him because he doesn't have that big ceiling. But if you're looking for consistency, he's sort of offering a bit of that at times this season. It's a shout out to Big Joe O. Probably missed some cheapies in there that people might look at as well, Bogues, but you'll find them. And to finish the round, it'll be the Broncos taking on the Dragons on Sunday at 4 o'clock. I'll just have a quick check at the chat, make sure I haven't. No Trent Peoples, guys. Matty's brought in Paps and Latrell this week. Big trades there. Kando, how are we? Yeah, Kando, actually, we forgot, Bogues. King promised every week.
And we gave him a few stays of execution. Because he had to bring in Cardi.
Well, that wasn't punishment enough, obviously, because
he hasn't done it either.
Not worried about it. What's going on here? What's JP is saying? Tigers number 17 is a cheapie.
Molo? Oh no. Tyson
Pole.
Oh, fuck, I'm Broncos now.
Vanilla Pole. I don't know much about Pole JP. If you got any intel, you just don't want him to play again. That's the problem. If you go into one of these guys, you don't want them to become an AE nightmare and they're getting like 10 or 20 minutes off the bench and scoring 10 to 20 points. It'll just be a nightmare. Hopefully Jetty Cartwright's that guy, or this Hoskin that's been named on the edge for Brisbane. That's sort of who you might want to look at, but let me know what's going on with him. Beers and Supercoach Playbook. Cheers, Shilsey. That was it. Shout out to Supercoach Playbook. That was who I was thinking of. I totally lost it. Really good podcast. Tim Williams and his crew do put out some really good content and images and all that sort of stuff, and that's where I saw the Sean Lane stats, Bogues.
Oh, fair enough.
Shout out to the Supercoach Playbook. Thanks, Shilsey. So finishing off with the Broncos taking on the Dragons up at Suncorp. So maybe a bit of a dry track up there. All the other 3 games will be played around that Sydney sort of area, so keep an eye on the weather. And some interesting ones in there. Plenty of changes in that Brisbane side. Tamari Martin's out, so Tessie New comes into the side, and obviously all the Origin players are out. No Cobbo, no Paddy Carrigan. Payne Haas is injured, although he would have been out due to Origin anyway. So Payne Haas, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what you read or what you listen to. is Payne Haas a trade? It's well, apparently Pole scored 44 last week and was named before Tomo dropped out. That's how much attention I've been paying. Yeah, so some interesting ones there. Plenty. It's a pretty depleted Brisbane side. They've got Kurt Capewell out, Paddy Carrigan, Cobbo, Fledger as well. Yeah, so a few interesting ones in this one. As I said, we've got this young fella making his debut, Zach Hoskin. He's bottom dollar. You can pick him in the back row. Was he bottom dollar actually? Let me confirm that, Bogues. Bringing to you lives. He's not even in the fucking. I'm pretty sure he was bottom dollar. Someone help me out here. I hadn't even got that far yet. Big Hoskins. The Hoss. Got to be. Oh. What's going on? Hoss, is he not even in the fucking thing yet? I spelled his name wrong. Hoss. Fuck me, have they not put him in yet or something? What's going on here? Is he only available at a position that I haven't fucking chosen or something? I've made an assumption that he's pickable in back row, but he obviously isn't, Bogues, because he's not coming up there. Must be a front row thing. Is he not in there yet? No? Is he not in? He's not in. Alright. Well, there you go. We won't know how much he is. I'm assuming he'll be bottom dollar. Thanks, Kendo. And Pole from the Tigers might be a better option, as JP said. He played 42 minutes. That's pretty solid from the Pole. Pole A, or whatever however you would say it. 42 minutes with 44 base. Not bad. Good shout, JP. Fucking get him on the show next week. So wait and see what Hoskins worth. Maybe look at Pole instead. Good shout. Yeah, so look, I don't know. There's lots missing from that Brisbane side. Staggs is in there. There's some people in some chats mentioning his name. I wouldn't be touching him with a 10-foot pole, but that's when he can blow up. He's 430k. His last month has been not amazing. He's had an 80 in there, but a few weeks before that, there's some 14s and 30s. But this could be, they've got not a bad draw over the next few weeks, really. 3 out of the next 4 games are very nice, Supercoach wise. So this is the sort of game that Staggs could score a try to potentially, but again, he's playing on the right, which means that'll be Moses Sully. So yeah, interesting matchup, Staggs and Sully. Sully's been playing some pretty good footy as well. Yeah, Ezra Mam, if you don't have him, I think you've missed the boat, but I'll be looking to play him this week. What else you got there? Yeah, interesting that bench as well, Bo. You've got Corey Pakes, the hooker, and then they've also now named Tyson Gamble. So again, in the Podmasters chat, there was a bit of speculation about whether that might be a negative impact for Mam, but I don't think so. I don't think it really makes too much sense for them to use one of their bench spots to replace the 5'8". And I think Kando said it that potentially Gamble comes on and plays maybe like a roaming lock sort of style player, extra ball player in the middle there, which is a very possible and good option. Pretty keen to see this young Xavier Willison as well. Lots of raps on him just from a footy perspective, Bogues. Coming off the bench for Brisbane. Pretty keen to see how he goes. Dragons side of the park. Look, we've talked about Lomax before. He's probably one of the only ones that you'd think about as like a keeper for the run home. I know Sully's been looking really good every week. Hasn't always translated to Supercoach points. He did score a try against Canberra. He's been pretty good. He's been a bit of a smoky for the last 3 weeks. Not a bad base. He has scored a try for the last 3 weeks though, which bumps his score up a bit. But he's a handful. He's been having a really good season, Sully. He's been sort of not really talked about too much, Bogues, but 500k with a 40-odd break even. It's a bit of a risky one. Again, it's sort of hard to think you're going to pick him at that price. You've got to consider him sort of like a keeper-ish or a sit and start keeper for the run home. And it'd be hard to do that with some of the other guys you can pick in those centre wing spots this season, Bogues, personally.
Well, I got him at the very start.
These are the punts you got to take. You picked Sully at the start.
Yeah, or it was close to the start. It was close to when he first started getting a regular run. Yeah.
No, he's looked really good for them this year. He's been one of their best, I reckon. Zachy Lomax, the other one, mid 500s now, 560 odd with a 69 break even. Look, he's going to have those 40s in him. The conditions are pretty ordinary on the weekend with as well, with in regards to goal kicking and just footy in general. So, yeah, he's a guy that could score well this week potentially. Brisbane missing some key players as well, so he's probably one of the only ones that I would look at in that side as a guy you could pick and be comfortable that potentially a keeper for the run home in that centre wing. And he can, he puts those 90s in, can score 90 pretty easily. Got a great flick pass on him and Ravalawa who can finish outside of him. But I don't know. Anything else in that Brisbane side, that St. George side, it's hard to recommend. Maybe I'm a bit critical as a Knights fan, but I wouldn't consider anyone else a must-have or someone that you could confidently pick up and take in for the run home. So I'm not gonna. I don't think I'm gonna do it. Jeez, let's do some research. A couple of players this week don't exist. Okay, there you go. That's how much I've had a look. Oh, we got Bird Shieldsy. Yeah, I mean, I was a fan of Birdie, but he's playing 80 on the edge, but it's just not translating. He scored a try. I think he scored a try on the weekend as well. The base is just not there for him. He's not busy enough, is he? Relying him on those tackle busts and scoring tries, but he's not doing enough of that either. He is cheap, but a bit of a punt for sure, Shieldsy. But yeah, I think that's it for team list, Bogues. I mean, I can talk through my trades a little bit just quickly while we wait to see if anyone's got any questions. Big 11 in the chat now. Thank you all for joining.
That must be in thousands, mate. 12,000.
Surely.
Million.
Have we hit 600 yet, or what? 600
Oh,
subs.
mate, we've got into the dead part of the season, mate. We're getting no more.
We'll shoot for 600 early in 2021 then. 2023, 2021. Fuck it hell. So this week there's a few guys I don't have, Bogan, that I think are like almost must-haves for 17. I really do think Dylan Brown's a must-have for 17.
Yeah, well, I've ditched Ruben Garrick. He was sitting at a 700 something.
There's a bit of rumour around he'd done something to his hip as well. Apparently he had to finish that Melbourne game off with a pain injection. Yeah, with the hip. So if you are a Garrick owner, maybe just keep an eye on that and try and find out a little bit more from
I went with him
Supercoach
and
Sponge.
Can't remember who else I traded, but him and another.
Frees up.
Yeah, well, to bring in Pappy.
Beautiful, beautiful. Are you using all three trades?
No, I don't have any turbos left. So.
No, 3 trade warrior.
No, I'm currently.
You could use 4 if you had your boost.
Currently only using 2.
How many trades you got left, and how many are you looking like having this week play?
6, and I'm looking at having. Yeah, not a lot playing this weekend.
Fuck, you'd have to have more than me. I'm dead set. I think I'm gonna have 9.
I didn't want to say because it's fucking embarrassing being the producer of a Supercoach show and only having 10 fucking players playing. But that's what I've got, 10.
Well, hang on.
The Supercoach predictor's got me at a massive 585 points for this round.
Yeah, so I have 6 before trades guaranteed to play. 6, 2, 4, 6. So max of 9. I'm fucking gonna be in a world of hurt. So I mean, like I said, I think Dylan Brown's like a must-have. Pap, I know he's a big price. It's really interesting with Pap. I've said to a lot of people he's must-have.
Both Paps.
Yeah,
I've got both Paps.
I Pap for sure. I mean, I forget about guys that already have.
He hasn't scored very well the past couple of weeks, I don't think. He didn't score very well last week, that's for sure.
No, and like I said, the terrible conditions. They got hammered.
He was just a pick and forget. So
he's still averaging 77 for the season, Bogues as well. I mean, I know he had some better scores earlier in the year, but he's not playing 80 every week as well now. He's sort of getting moved around and playing in the middle, and Arthur's killing us. But Yeah, I mean, you look at his month before the bye, and he was unbelievable. So, yeah, I think if you can afford to get him in, get him in. Maddo, again, high price tag, but can just score so well. And these are guys that are not just saying they're keepers, must-haves for this week. It's they you could pick them up this week, and you're going to have them for the run home. They're keepers for the run home. Kandos, yes, fair. That's a fair conundrum. Latrell versus D-Bags, so similar price. They're both probably similarly capable. I'd imagine D-Bags is much more owned, so you're getting much more of that pod action in Trell, but there's probably going to be a lot of people looking at Trell, but, people that have sort of got Munster and Brown in there and Teddy, and probably a lot of people more focused on trying to get Pat. Latrell might go a little bit under the radar, really. There's a good chance that he ends up being a good pod this week and a good draw against us as well. Maddie's saying Murray or Ola for the run home. Well, that's an interesting one. You've almost missed the boat on Ola. He's very big price now, 600, nearly 700k, the big man. I mean, you haven't, have you? You haven't really missed the boat. 670 odd k. They've got a pretty good draw the next couple of weeks. They play Newcastle, the Dragons, Roosters, Parrot, Titans, Sharks. I mean, yeah, I really like Manly's run home actually. Without seeing Murray's run home. The base, obviously, for Ola isn't an issue, but it's not huge. It's generally around that 40, 45. You're relying on him to get those attacking stats, those tackle busts, those offloads, those tries, which he can get. Whereas Big Muzzer, he's going to be in the middle doing plenty of work. I know he's probably had a little bit more of a lean last month or so, probably due to some origin stuff, and he had a bit of an injury there about a month ago as well, but even his base hasn't been that amazing. So, I mean, looking at that, Murray's a lot cheaper. He's about 100,000 cheaper. You're probably getting a little bit more value out of Murray, but he hasn't scored that well in his last sort of 4 games. Really, he scored an 87 a couple of weeks ago. Bit of a coin toss. I'd like Ola. I think the run home is a little bit better as well, but that's a tough one, Matty. If you could have them both, ideally, I think they're both potentially keepers in the centre wing. In the second row for the run home, because there's not a lot of amazing options there. Guys that have good ceilings, that are playing good footy. Ola's in form. He's had a breakout year, playing some really good footy. Murray's Murray. He's going to score for a try every now and then. He gets in, does his work. He could pump out a 60 to 70 in base some weeks. So you're getting him for unders, I reckon, at 580 for sure. Good value buy. So if you think he's going to finish the season well, I like him, Matty. Like them both. Centre wings, take your pick. I think we're spoiled for choice a little bit. You got guys like Manu, Toto, Militano. Whether you think these Panthers boys in May or Targo, Talakai is another interesting one. Daniel Tupu is going to be cheap. There'd be guys I haven't thought of, but that's just, Zach Lomax. What else we got there? Garrick, Alex Johnson, depending on draws. There's just so many options in that centre wing position. I think that's going to be the difference, right? What you pick in those centre wing positions for your run home, and maybe even if you chuck one of your centre wings as one of your reserves each week, because these are the positions that are more consistently blowing up and are really going to probably make the difference for the run home. There's not going to be a lot of guys in the forward pack that are going to be standouts. A lot of people are probably going to drift to the same players in the forwards, but it's the centre wings where you can get some of those players a difference, because you're looking at this week, there's guys like Val Holmes and Sion Katoa, Critter, there's plenty of Selwyn, Cobbo. There's just a lot of genuine options you could go that are not too bad. Just have a look at their draw, pick them up at the right time, and hope for the best. Oh, there you go, perhaps 12k trade-ins, Trell 5, wow. Crazy. JP, I would generally always go Bulbasaur, mate. But I'm a big fan of all 3 of the starters: Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charmander. What about you, Bo?
All the way, mate.
Squirtle, they're all awesome. I can't split them. Fuck Pikachu though. Would you enough for JTB for around 17? What's JTB worth? Is it worth enough cash? Shieldsy would be my only question, bud. Tanua Brown. What is he, 300s or something? What do we got? Tanua. No, that's not how you spell it. Let's just go with Brown. 270. Ugh. I mean, best case, you can't even make 100k on the trade. It's a bit of an awkward one, Shieldsy. I probably wouldn't be burning a trade to. I mean, even if you want a bottom dollar guy like a Cartwright or a Hoskin or a Pole, I don't know if it's worth the trade, because if you could have made a little bit more money out of it, like 150 or something, I'd probably say sure. But even at a bottom dollar, you're not going to make 100,000. So if you need the money and it gets you to be able to pick up like a Pappy or someone like that without having to drop someone else decent in your team that you'd rather keep, go for it. But yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. I don't think I got to my trades, Bogues. Anyway, I'm looking at Dill Brown, looking at Paps, also looking at whether not to bring in Paps. They do play the Sharks. The weather could be shit. He's still got 100 break even. Am I fucking mad? I didn't bring him in last week. Am I mad for thinking I've told everyone he's a must-have now, but I've tinkered with the idea because the 3 trades I can make not going him are much better across the board. I could go Latrell, Dill Brown, and like a 400k guy, or it's like Paps, someone around 300 or 400, and then a nuffed. So ultimately, Paps is a keeper for the run home. The sooner you get him in, the better. He could hurt you any week, including this week, but my crazy ass has toyed with the idea of maybe not going him this week and going like who Kando said, like a Trell instead. Maybe I can go a Brown Trell, and I can't even remember who the other one was, but that's what I'm tinkering with. We'll see what happens. But that's about it, Bogues. No more in the chat, it doesn't look like. Thank you all for joining us. The 10, 11 people, 12, whatever it was that finally jumped in. All the best this week. Hope you do well. Hopefully you can maintain or improve your ranking. A big week. There's a big opportunity to move up some rankings. You'll probably go past me. I'm expecting some red arrows. So, if I can score 600 or 700 points, I'll probably take it. It's the number of guys I got. But that might be a bit of a stretch. Could be my friggin' lowest Supercoach score ever, depending on this weather. But all the best. Hope the Supercoach gods are kind, and we'll see you all next week. Hopefully King will be joining us as well, Bogues.
Well, I tell you what, mate, I feel sorry for your missus if you're here next week.
Well, yeah, any day now. I've said it last week, but she's 39 weeks from Thursday this week, so
Yeah.
You might see me with a new edition next week. Might hear some crying in the background, or I might be MIA. We'll just have to play it by ear.
Oh, mate, if your missus drops the kid, definitely the other 3.
Oh, let's not make any hasty decisions. They'll still have to go to bed at bloody 7, Bogues. If I can get them in there by 7:30, that's a result.
Fair enough.
We'll see, but yeah. Well done, Matty. Hope you can firm in for a big finish to the season, brother. But yeah, we'll catch you all next week. Otherwise, have a good one. Like, subscribe, share, show a friend, show your neighbour, whatever.
Good sell there. Good night, everyone.
Cheers. Night.